In a sport where compliance is currency, Nate Diaz turned defiance into a weapon, challenging his own bosses on live TV, paying $20,000 in fines, and taunting the UFC's biggest names with a Stockton sneer. Before he ever upended the promotion's most carefully built narratives, Diaz had already humiliated the system's gatekeepers by simply refusing to play along. But why did a fighter from Stockton become the one man the UFC could not control or silence? The answer starts long before the world was watching. Stockton, California is a place that wears its scars in public. The city's reputation, tough, unpolished, never apologetic, runs through the Diaz brothers like a current. For Nate Diaz, the 209 is not just an area code. It is shorthand for a way of life, blue-collar, combative, and loyal to the bone. Before the world knew his name, Nate was just another kid in Stockton, following his older brother Nick into the battered gyms and backyards where fighting was less about glory and more about survival. At the Cesar Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy, the Diaz brothers built their style in a room that felt more like a family than a fight camp. Cesar Gracie's gym became their second home, a place where egos were checked at the door and respect was earned through rounds, not words. Stories from those early days echo the same attitude fans would later see on pay-per-view. Nate, bloodied but grinning, refusing to quit, Nick setting the pace with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove. The Stockton brand was never a marketing plan. It grew out of real hardship and real fights. The 209 tattooed across Nate's chest is a badge of everything the UFC could not manufacture in a boardroom. When Nate taunts an opponent or flips a middle finger, it is not a calculated stunt. It is Stockton code, a signal to anyone watching that he is bringing something raw and unfiltered into a world that prefers polish. That is why, when Diaz steps into the cage or grabs a microphone, fans believe him. He does not play the role of a rebel. He lives it every day, with the same authenticity he learned from Nick, from Cesar, and from Stockton itself. By 2012, Nate Diaz had already made it clear he was not going to play by the UFC rules. He fought his way to a lightweight title shot against Benson Henderson, but even with a championship on the line, Diaz aired his grievances about pay. Publicly, he called out the promotion for what he saw as lowball offers, setting off a pattern of open contract disputes. While most fighters kept their complaints behind closed doors, Diaz let his frustration spill into interviews and social media, refusing to hide his discontent. The standoff grew sharper after that title fight. Diaz took only one bout in the next 2 years, a lopsided loss to Rafael dos Anjos. Instead of chasing the next paycheck, he sat out, letting the UFC feel his absence. But the tension did not stop at contract talks. In May 2013, Diaz fired off a tweet that violated the UFC code of conduct, resulting in a suspension of 90 days and a fine of $20,000. The message aimed at another fighter was explicit, defiant, and impossible for the UFC to ignore. The organization tried to rein him in, but Diaz shrugged off the penalty and kept talking. When he finally returned, Diaz picked up right where he left off. After beating Michael Johnson in December 2015, he grabbed the live microphone and, with the world watching, called out Conor McGregor directly. He said, "You're taking everything I work for, motherfucker, and I'ma fight your fucking ass. No filter, no script, and no concern for the UFC broadcast standards." With that outburst, Diaz hijacked the show and forced the promotion to deal with him on his terms. The friction was no longer just about money or discipline, it was about control. And Diaz had just thrown down a challenge the UFC could not ignore. Rafael dos Anjos broke his foot less than 2 weeks before UFC 196. The UFC main event, built around Conor McGregor's rise, collapsed overnight. With the spotlight and millions of dollars on the line, the promotion scrambled. Calls went out to Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Donald Cerrone. No one bit. Then Nate Diaz, with barely 11 days to prepare, agreed to fight McGregor at welterweight. The match was set, the UFC's loudest superstar versus its most unfiltered rebel, a script no one in the front office had written. Fight week spun into chaos. Diaz showed up with bags under his eyes and a chip on his shoulder. At the weigh-ins, he stared McGregor down, flipping him off before a single punch was thrown. The tension was raw, the hype electric. On March 5, 2016, Diaz entered the cage as a heavy underdog. For 5 minutes, McGregor unleashed everything: spinning kicks, sharp lefts, relentless pressure. Diaz bled, but he did not break. In round 2, he started landing. The crowd's mood shifted. McGregor, suddenly gassed, shot for a desperate takedown. Diaz sprawled, took the back, and locked in a rear naked choke. 4 minutes and 12 seconds into round 2, McGregor tapped. As Joe Rogan pushed a microphone in his face, Diaz wiped the blood from his chin and delivered the line that would echo around the world. "I'm not surprised, motherfuckers." The arena erupted. The UFC's Golden Boy had been finished by a fighter who was not even supposed to be there, on a night the promotion had tried to control. In one viral moment, Diaz flipped the script and humiliated the machine that built it. UFC 202 landed just 5 months after Diaz choked out McGregor. The rematch was not about settling a rivalry. It was about repairing a broken narrative. The UFC, desperate to restore its Golden Boy's aura, threw its entire promotional machine behind the rematch. The press tour stretched from New York to Las Vegas, and every stop was a circus. Diaz hurled insults with the same casual venom he brought to the cage, while McGregor fired back with tailored suits and rehearsed bravado. Chairs flew at the final press conference. Security flooded the stage. The promotion had lost control, but ticket sales soared. On August 20th, 2016, the T-Mobile Arena was packed, and so were the pay-per-view numbers. UFC 202 shattered records, drawing more than 1.6 million buys, the biggest in the company's history at the time. Diaz, who once fought for $20,000, walked away with a guaranteed $2 million purse. The payday was a 100-fold leap, and a public reminder of how much leverage he had seized in just 6 months. Yet the fight itself settled nothing. McGregor edged out a narrow majority decision. Fans split down the middle, arguing in bars and online forums about who really won. The UFC's attempt to regain control only deepened the rivalry and magnified the chaos. Diaz's taunts and composure in the cage became the story, not the result. The promotion found itself addicted to the drama that had embarrassed it and unable to break free from the spectacle it tried so hard to manage. Inside the cage, Nate Diaz turned taunting into a weapon. Against Kurt Pellegrino in 2008, Diaz locked in a triangle choke, then flexed his arms and flipped double middle fingers before the tap, making the submission as much a statement as a finish. Years later, when he faced Gray Maynard in 2013, Diaz dropped him with a barrage of punches, then strutted away, arms raised, before the referee even stepped in. These were not just moments of celebration, they rattled opponents, forcing them to fight on Diaz's terms. Whether it was a slap mid-combination, a sarcastic salute, or a casual walk-off after a knockdown, Diaz's antics broke the rhythm of the fight and the expectations of the promotion. Each gesture sent a message. No one, not even the UFC, could script how Nate Diaz would perform under the lights. Inside the UFC, matchmakers started calling Diaz a booking nightmare. Mick Maynard, the man tasked with keeping fight cards intact, once admitted, "You just never know what Nate will say or do. He changes the whole equation." Journalists like Ariel Helwani picked up on the pattern, pointing out how Diaz weaponized his outsider status. On ESPN, Helwani argued that Diaz's unpredictability forced the UFC to negotiate in public, erasing the usual power dynamic. Headlines shifted from fight results to contract standoffs and viral moments. Meanwhile, fans amplified every gesture. Clips of Diaz slapping opponents or trash-talking mid-fight racked up millions of views. At the T-Mobile Arena, the crowd's chant, "Diaz, Diaz," drowned out the official branding, making it clear who really owned the moment. The spectacle wasn't just about winning or losing. Diaz had turned the UFC machine into a backdrop for his own rebellion, and everyone, insiders, media, and fans, could see it. Today, fighters who speak out or break script still risk fines and suspensions, just as Diaz did, racking up over $20,000 in penalties. Yet the appetite for raw, unfiltered personalities only grows. Authentic rebellion isn't just spectacle, it's the lever that can still shake the sport's foundations. What is your take?